One of the most beautiful things about life and this life that we live is that it is an incredibly beautiful teacher. The experiences that we go through, the experiences that other people go through and we observe and analyze, it allows us to come up with our own conclusions and interpretations how about we should go about our lives. It's a beautiful thing. And one of these experiences that I'm alluding to is not putting too much information out there for the public, regardless of what it is. I think it's a very slippery slope to talk about things that you want to do, things that you got going on, possessions you may have, whatever the case may be. Just the divulging of information to the public really makes you an unwarranted or unjustified target. And some of you might say, a target to who? It's a good question. A target to people who mean you harm. Now, you might be the most peaceful individual on planet Earth. You might be the nicest individual in the universe. With that being said, you still will have people that will go out of their way to cause disruption in your life. There are people who are that dysfunctional who, when given the opportunity, and that opportunity is when you put information out there and they see that you are doing anything or something successful and making meaningful progression in your life, that dysfunctional individual will, by any means necessary, take that opportunity to cause disruption in your life. One of the things that I do not do, at least for the past 3 to 5 years, is divulge information, too much information. Telling people where I'm going, what I'm doing, how I do things. I'm very hesitant to put that information out there for public consumption. You must keep in mind that any little information that you put out there, people can and will use it against you. So at this particular point, the question is, what information do you want to put out there? And for me, it's quite simple. Instead of speaking with my lips, instead of speaking with my mouth, my actions speak volumes. I rather do what it is that I set out to do as opposed to say what I set out to do. Because at that point, if you develop a habit of doing things consistently and not letting the public know and not giving individuals, degenerates, an opportunity to thwart and disrupt your productivity, then even though they still might not like it, they will have no choice but to accept it and respect what it is that you do. Because ultimately, when you put things out there, to me, it suggests on some level you want people to accept, to acknowledge your accolades or your accomplishments or your achievements, whatever the case may be. But nothing speaks more louder than the actual achievement itself or the actual behavior itself. So for instance, if a college player talks about wanting to win the Heisman, that's different from the college player who actually doesn't talk about winning the Heisman and winning the Heisman. If an NBA player talks about winning the MVP, that is entirely different in contrast with the NBA player who actually wins the MVP. So, subduing yourself, taking the approach of unpretentiousness, toning it down, not putting too much out there. It is, in my opinion, the much more efficient way to productivity as a very highly effective individual in this life, as opposed to putting it out there. Because sometimes we're only human. When we do talk about things that we want to do, when we do talk about things, life does occur. And when you say you're going to do something, or when you say something is going to get done and it never occurs, at that particular point, you lose somewhat respect from the public. And ironically enough, that is what you're trying to gain from the public by putting it out there, because you want to be accepted, you want to be respected. But when the things that you say doesn't actually come to pass, and that happens to be a consistent theme amongst yourself, well, then at that particular point, what is the point? So, in short, putting too much information out there in the public, putting too much information out there for public consumption on social media, whatever the case may be, that isn't always the best route to controlling the narrative that you want to control. A lot of times, action, and once you have done the action, coupling that with touting what it is that you have done, I think that that's a much better recipe for success, as opposed to talking about it and that being the ingredients for failure. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you for listening. And as always, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.